My name is Jared Stern, and you're listening to Wrapped, the official podcast of the Tefillin Project, a project which gives tefillin to people who have never received a pair before. Here is where you will get to listen to the most inspiring people involved in the mitzvah of tefillin. On this episode of Wrapped, I interviewed Rabbi Josh Friedman, the founder of Israel Select Charity Fund. During our conversation, we discussed how Rabbi Friedman was able to raise $3 million for 6,000 soldiers to receive their own pair of tefillin. Hello, Rabbi Josh Friedman. Thank you so much for joining Wrapped, the Tefillin Project podcast. Why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm not sure where to start exactly, but I'll tell you. I'm Josh Friedman. I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, and went to school in Memphis, went to Yeshiva University. I learned in Gush, Har Etzion, and Gush Etzion. I got smicha from YU. I was a math major, made Aliyah 18 years ago. I worked as an actuary for a short period of time, and then I transitioned more into Jewish communal work.
Amazing. So I guess, we're all here for what's in the back right now, a little background there, Israel Select Charity Fund. People have seen it, especially the past 6 months, all over the internet. But what exactly is Israel Select Charity Fund? How was it started? And, what if you could explain more about it, it'd be great.
Very good question. It was in the year 2020. I was working for a high school in Beitar Elite for basically orphans from the former Soviet Union. I'd been working there for many years. I enjoyed my work. And I was visiting Rabbi David Abu Chotzera. He is a big makubal, a big rabbi. He lives in the north in the city called Nahariya. He's actually a grandson of the famous Baba Sali. And when I was meeting with him, he says to me, Josh Friedman, you need to open your own amuta. You need your own organization. And I said, why? I already work for a school. I'm not looking to open my own place. He said, no, you have to have your own thing. You have certain skills. There's what you can do for the Jewish people. And if you don't know how to do it, my Gabbai will help you open it for you. So I wasn't going to not listen to him, and I opened it. I had no idea exactly what was going to happen. But shortly after Israel Select was opened, all of a sudden we had COVID-19. And there were a lot of needs around the whole world, and especially in my city of Beit Shemesh. And during that time period, I was able to raise the money to buy 3 ambulances to help people get back and forth to the hospitals. I bought over 100 portable oxygen concentrators. I was able to buy hospital beds so people could recuperate at home rather than the hospital. Unfortunately, there's stories of people who actually were in the hospital and ended up dying not from COVID-19, but from some other sickness they caught in the hospital. So it's very important to have people have the ability to actually recuperate at home. So that was one of my first major projects that Israel Select did. Then it wasn't too much time after that we had the war in Ukraine. And I was called upon by the Karliner Rebbe, who does a lot of work in the former Soviet Union, especially in the Ukraine, to help try to get the Jews out of the Ukraine. And then I was able, with my friends and connections, to raise over $1 million to help bring Jews from the Ukraine out anywhere in the world. But we tried to get as many as possible to Israel. And once we got them to Israel, we were able to actually help dozens and dozens of families get relocated to cities in Israel, to help them get jobs, to help them transfer over their decrees from the former Soviet Union, so they wouldn't just be out of a dangerous place, but they would be in a new land and be able to live a successful life.
Wow. And in terms of tefillin, the past 7 months.
Now we're going to jump back to tefillin. The story with tefillin is as follows: there is a man named Mendy Ofen. He would go around, he's a Chabadnik, he's Lubavitch, and he was very much into doing whatever he can to bring Jews a little bit closer to God, to Hashem. 24 years ago, he was in the city of Hebron in the south, and he was there reading the Megillah on Purim with his brother. As they were there, they got ambushed by Hamas. And his brother was shot in the leg, but Mendy was shot through the shoulder, in the shoulder, out the neck. And it looked like he wasn't going to make it. And as he was on the ground, the police came and they saw that Mendy had been shot. He was dressed in a Purim costume. His costume was a general in the Israeli Defense Forces. But the policemen didn't know they didn't know that was a costume. They thought the general had been shot. So they're on the radios, the general's been shot. He's been shot. So right away, the army sent a helicopter, and the helicopter picked up Mendy. While he was in the helicopter, he was basically in and out. And he didn't know he was going to make it. And he said, Hashem, if I survive, I'm going to spend the rest of my life taking care of soldiers. That's all I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And he survived. For the past 24 years, this guy, Mendy Ofen, has been going to army bases, whether the soldiers want tefillin, whether they want tzitzis, whether they want to just learn how to say the Shema prayer, whatever they want, anything for their spiritual needs, he's there for them. And he has been able to affect the lives of thousands and thousands of soldiers in a very positive way. And so now, how do I come into the picture? Is that around 10 years ago, a rabbi of mine connected me with Mendy and said that Mendy has been building gemachim. Basically, he has stations and army bases across the country with tefillin. And whenever a soldier is going into a dangerous mission, we're not talking about not even a war, but all the time, soldiers are doing dangerous missions every single day. They're going into Beit Lechem, they're going into Hebron, they're going to Yericho. Very often a soldier will say, I want to put on tefillin. The soldier doesn't need to be religious. Most of these soldiers are not religious. And they're not praying shacharit in the morning. They just want to put on tefillin, say Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, and then take off the tefillin and go in and fight. So I would help Mendy, basically financially, I would help raise the money to supply to keep these gemachim filled with tefillin. And I've been doing that for over 10 years. Once in a while, when a soldier says, I really like this mitzvah of tefillin and I want my own pair, then we have basically a deal that if you're willing to put on tefillin every day, obviously not on the Sabbath, not on the holidays, but you're willing to wear tefillin every day, even if you don't go to the synagogue, even if you don't do the full prayer service, if you're accept upon yourself, you're going to put on tefillin, let's say it's 5 minutes a day, you're wrapping yourself, connecting with Hashem, then you can have a pair of tefillin, your own tefillin. So over the years, I've provided lots of soldiers with tefillin, but nothing compares to what happened October 7. After October 7, the numbers of soldiers who wanted tefillin was astronomical. So what happened was, any questions?
I mean, gosh, I'm hooked right now. You want to get the next steps.
So here's what happened. So after October 7, shortly after that, I was provided with a list from the Army of 2,500 soldiers who said, we want tefillin, and we accept upon ourselves to do this mitzvah of tefillin every day. So I started contacting my friends. I need some money. It's only $500. Really, these tefillin are almost $900 to $1,000, but we have a special deal with the Sofrim who are making tefillin, a special deal just for soldiers to get them at cost price. So then I was going to all my friends, reaching out to other people, and I worked really hard to get to the number 2,500 pairs of tefillin, and I got there. But by the time I got to 2,500, the number had already grown to 4,000. Meaning, once soldiers were wearing tefillin, and we always tell a soldier, when you get a pair of tefillin, please share these tefillin with other soldiers. They're your tefillin, you own them, you deserve them, but we're here to connect and help all Jews. Another soldier wants to wear tefillin, you can let him use your tefillin. So what happened is soldiers would start wearing the tefillin of people we gave tefillin to, and now they want tefillin. So then I started working on the 4,000. And as I was getting close to 4,000, the numbers had already moved up to 6,000. So right now, I'm looking at 6,000 soldiers who are saying, we want tefillin. And this is a very crucial time because unfortunately, things are heating up in the north. And we don't know, like when people call me from America, Rabbi Friedman, I'm coming to Israel. Can you take me to an army base? I'll be there in a month from now. I'll be there 2 months from now. I say, I don't even know what's happening tomorrow. It's a war. We can't plan out 2 months from now what we're doing to go on a trip to an army base. So even now, we know that there's soldiers. I was in the Hermon 2 weeks ago. I was in the border with Gaza last week. There's soldiers on all the borders right now. They may be going in tomorrow, and they're waiting for tefillin. So right now, there's a major, major push to get the remaining soldiers who want tefillin their tefillin.
Why specifically do you think the mitzvah of tefillin is what they want, let's say, over tzitzis, which they could wear 24/7, while tefillin is, you put it on, take it off, and you go on with your day. What's so special about the mitzvah?
That's an amazing, amazing question. Really, I've heard lots of questions. That's one of the best questions. So I can tell you, first of all, with respect to tzitzis, you should know the Israeli army, they provide tzitzis for soldiers. And if you've heard of any programs of Americans trying to bring tzitzis to soldiers, that's only because we had so many people, reservists, called up in a short period of time that there weren't enough pairs of tzitzis in the army. So therefore, for that gap was, taken care of mostly by American Jews. Tefillin are not provided by the army. Now, why do soldiers want tefillin? On a basic level, is I think they feel like they're doing something more than tzitzis. We never say one mitzvah is greater than another mitzvah, but there's something about the idea they're tying and they're connecting themselves to Hashem. They're connecting themselves to other soldiers. There's certain mitzvahs that we do that a mitzvah is just words. When you say Shema Yisrael, you're saying words. When you say Kiddush Friday night, you're saying words. But there's certain mitzvahs where you're doing an action. When I eat a piece of matzah, it's not just I'm making a prayer over the matzah, I'm actually doing something physical. Something's entering my body. When they put on tefillin, they feel like they're doing something, just like when they take their gun and they cock the gun to make sure it's working right. When they put on the vest and make sure it's on properly. They put on their helmet and then they put on the safety part. They feel like they're tying themselves to Hashem with tefillin. That's just on the basic level. It happens to be, we say there's a concept of a pentelayid, like every Jew, even if he's totally not religious, inside, he's a Jew. A Jew is a Jew. If you're born Jewish, I don't care whether one person has long payas and a big hat and a big tallis, and the other person has a mohawk and no tzitzis and nothing. If you're born a Jew and he's born a Jew, we're all Jews. It says in the Talmud that out of all the mitzvahs, there's 613 mitzvahs, the only mitzvah where it says that this puts fear in the eyes of the non-Jews is the mitzvah of tefillin. The only mitzvah where we say that this is a spiritual weapon is the mitzvah of tefillin. So I think on a certain level that deep inside of the neshama of each Jew, there's a certain connection to tefillin. Because if you ask me to explain it to you rationally, it's very hard to explain it. I was totally shocked when the numbers of soldiers kept increasing and increasing. As you said, you just put it on for a few minutes and you take it off, but somehow, maybe it's like, when a guy gets up in the morning, he does 50 push-ups to get himself pumped up for the day. When they put on these tefillin, they feel like they're pumped up and they're ready to go into battle. I had many soldiers. This is after October 7th. There was a certain time period before the army entered Gaza. Right, it was a couple of weeks when we were on the border and the troops were there, but they hadn't entered yet. And I had soldiers say to me, Rabbi Friedman, I have my gun, I have my bulletproof vest, I got my tank. I'm not going into Gaza without tefillin. I don't know why, but that's what they're telling me. One of the donors said to me, and he's not a very religious person, but he said, you know what? I want to provide the soldiers with what they want. If a soldier needs a vest, I'm going to do it. If he needs chewing gum, I'm going to get it for him. If he needs special earplugs, I'm going to get it. If he needs tefillin, if that's going to help the soldier fight better, then even if I don't understand why, if that's what he wants, I'm going to get it for him.
Oh, it's so beautiful. I know there's something like you were saying before, the Gemara, the non-Jews literally see Hashem's tefillin, him wearing it, us wearing his tefillin because we're all a part of him, and they're like scared of us. Do you have any stories of soldiers who started putting tefillin on, or maybe in Gaza, outside of Gaza, just how tefillin was involved in miracles upon miracles for specific soldiers, units, anything specific that comes to mind?
I mean, there are a lot of stories. I'll tell you one or two quick stories. There was one story when we were on an army base near Gaza, and there were soldiers on the list. We have a list of soldiers who've asked for tefillin, and one guy, he wasn't on the list, but he came up to us, and it was hard to find a place on his body without a tattoo, meaning he wasn't brought up too religious at all. This guy was tattoo city, and he started asking a million questions about tefillin. And he was so intrigued by it. He said, I want to wear tefillin every day. I really want tefillin. Can I please have a pair? So we took down his name, took down his WhatsApp, and we gave him a pair of tefillin. After he put on the tefillin, it was the first time in his life he ever wore tefillin. He puts on tefillin. He knew how to say Shema. After he said Shema, we took off the tefillin. We showed him how to wrap them up. He says, okay, I'm ready now. We say, we're ready for what? He says, I'm ready to do it now. And we said, to do what? He says, I'm ready to have a bris milah. The guy had never had a bris milah. We're talking about someone who's 20 years old. He never had a bris milah. And I'm not saying the effects of tefillin are always this fast, but less than 5 minutes after he had worn tefillin, he felt like, wow, now I can do it. I have the energy. I'm on the move. I can do it. I want to have a bris milah. Within 24 hours, we had a moel on the army base, and he had his bris milah.
It's crazy. I mean, tefillin just, you hear stories about people putting tefillin on at the kotel, it just like opens their hearts. And like they just
Right.
start crying and bawling. And for the first time, people super not religious, unaffiliated, they come to the kotel on a birthright trip or just touring, and then they wrap the straps around, and it's just like some part of the neshama like opens up and just is exposed to Hashem, the connection, and they start crying. And I guess like the next battle is how you turn that inspiration into consistency. But just crazy about it's crazy what tefillin does for the Jewish neshama.
You're totally right. It's unbelievable. Can I tell you one other story? I don't know whether you have time for another
Please,
story.
love to hear.
There was another story where we met this guy, and he was like one of these mean, tough guy in the army. And October 7, he was there. He was like visiting his family, in Otef Gaza, near the border of Gaza. And he said it was Sof Shavua. We usually refer to Saturday as Shabbat or Shabbos. He called it Sof Shavua. I mean, he was so far from religion, he called it the end of the week. He didn't even know the word of the Sabbath. He said he woke up, that Saturday morning, and he heard machine guns. He said, okay, fine, you hear machine guns once in a while, you hear a little bit here, a little bit there. But then he said it was like a lot of machine guns. And then he looked out the window and he said it was like dozens and dozens and dozens of terrorists on motorcycles with machine guns going everywhere. And he couldn't believe it. So he said he had, he's in the army, he got his gun, and he said, I got to do what I can. He said, he didn't think he was going to make it. He said, I got to at least try to stop as many of these terrorists as I can. And he's by himself. I mean, he's not with his platoon. He's by himself. And he goes out there and he just starts shooting and shooting and shooting. And as he was shooting, he says to Hashem, if I survive, I want tefillin. And then he said to himself, wait a second, what did I just say? He doesn't know where it came from. And he survived. He survived this onslaught of Hamas. And then we said to him, so like that was a few weeks ago. This is a few weeks after November 7th. So like, so what have you been doing? He said, you wanted tefillin. He said, well, I've been borrowing I don't have tefillin. I've been borrowing from other soldiers tefillin every day. I wear tefillin every day now. So he said, how would you like to have your own pair of tefillin? So I gave him a pair of tefillin. This mean, tough guy had mamash tears in his eyes. He got his first pair of tefillin, and he put them on. He already knew how to wear tefillin. He's already been wearing it this is already November time. He's been wearing it for a few weeks. He puts it on. He says Shema with such kavana and such intention. You would have thought this guy was brought up religious, the way he said it with such a heart. And he is now wearing tefillin every single day. And he wants to even get closer to Hashem now. Somehow he said his words, I'll say it in Hebrew and then translate, he's Ani Chai Benes. I'm living in a miracle. This is a phrase that a lot of Israelis are using now. Ani Chai Benes. I live in a miracle, meaning the fact that I'm alive right now, it's a miracle. There are hundreds and hundreds of stories of soldiers who are saying that it's a miracle I'm alive. And I'm not talking about religious soldiers. To make it clear, there are a lot of religious soldiers in the army. I don't have anything to do with them. Not because I'm prejudiced. I'm not anti-religious soldiers. It's just Hashem gave me a job right now. And my job is to go there and help the Jews who are not so connected to get a little bit more connected. That's what I'm doing. Thank God, all the Jews who learned in the Hesder yeshivas and who have the Das Leumi background and they are religious and they have tefillin, they're doing great. I mean, all of us, everyone's trying to close to Hashem, but my focus is the Jewish people who never had tefillin in their life, or maybe they had them and they got them when they were 13, and that was basically it. They had it for the bar mitzvah, but they didn't use it afterwards. So those are really the people we're working with.
Wow, it's unbelievable. I feel like mine Hashem, I'm almost like crying inside just sharing these stories. The delivery is so good, and it's also me connecting to another Yid and feeling, I guess, his connection that he has, or trying to access that for the first time. But I guess segueing into a little bit more of the Israel Select Charity Fund, in terms of numbers, I mean, 6,000 soldiers, $3 million. I mean, to me, these seem like absurd numbers. You have large organizations that have budgets of, I don't know, $5-10 million a year. $3 million. Like, how is someone accomplishing this? Like, what is the staff needed? What does it entail? What are the operations like? I mean,
First off, Israel Select is a unique organization that, Rabbi David Abu I told you was the rabbi who had me started. It's an organization where the people who are running it get zero salary. What does that mean? It's very simple. I work in real estate. I have two jobs. I work in real estate, and I give classes. I teach in a yeshiva here in Beit Shemesh where I live. And on the side, I try to use Israel Select to do projects for the Jewish people. So this side thing, which I do because I have a passion to help Jews, and I have a major passion to ask people for money. So please don't get nervous, but that's what I do. I love asking people for money, and I really feel that like I'm giving them the opportunity to take their hard-earned money and cash it in for a mitzvah. When you have money, you own a stock, it goes up, it goes down. You own a piece of property, you go up in value, you go down in value. Once you take your money and you turn it into a mitzvah, that's there forever. There's no up or down. You did a mitzvah, it's somewhere in Shemayim, you helped an old lady, you helped a kid get tefillin, you helped somebody have food on the table. So I have a major passion to ask people for money. So this little passion of mine has become very time consuming since October 7. The other people on my staff, I have a woman who works for me. She's a writer. She lives in Memphis, Tennessee. She has her own business. I have a guy who works in the insurance business in Chicago. He takes care of the accounting. He takes care of the checks and all the paperwork. They don't take salaries. These are all people who, when I say independently wealthy, it doesn't mean they're multimillionaires. It means they have the ability to dedicate a few hours of their week toward Israel Select. So that's number one. Now, $3 million, which is $500 a pair, that's 6,000 pairs of tefillin. I always think numbers are, I was the math major. Every number is relative. In other words, $3 million to a lot of people is a lot of money. To Bill Gates, it's not a lot of money. How do you look at it? So I look at it as it's a very small number in the big picture of what's being put into the war efforts. Hundreds of millions of dollars a week are going into the efforts to strengthen the Israeli army and to help take care of the Jewish people who've been basically evacuated from their homes. $3 million is not even a percent of what's being spent on the war efforts. I think it's the biggest ROI, return on investment, that anyone can get when it comes to investing in this war. How have I gotten to where I'm up to now? Let's see, we're up to 2.4 million. So if you have an extra $600,000 and you can get it to me by Thursday, please do. So, but I just started connecting with my friends, and I do have like somewhat of a donor base. And then there are people who heard about this campaign who reached out to me. I mean, there are a lot of stories. There's one guy, he reached out to me and he says to me, I live in North Carolina. There are enough Jews in North Carolina, you won't figure out who this guy is, but he says, my wife is not Jewish, my kids aren't Jewish, but I feel the soldiers need tefillin, and I'm sending you $10,000. I want to get 20 pairs. 2 minutes later, I see, bam, $10,000 comes in. Then I get another email from him. He said, I made a mistake. I want 21 pairs because I want you to send me a pair.
wow.
Totally non-religious. I had another non-religious guy from Illinois. Usually, people, if they're religious and they're from Illinois, they'll tell you, I'm from Chicago. I'm from this part of Chicago. He's from some suburb somewhere. And he also says, I'm intermarried, but I feel that if soldiers want tefillin, I want to help out. And he's been sending me basically every other week. He sends another $5,000. I never met this guy. So someone else reached out to me and he says to me, I feel that this is a window of opportunity that soon will close. Because we know there's no such thing as an atheist in a foxhole. Once the war ends, the desire for these soldiers that I want tefillin will either go down to zero or go very close to zero. So he said that I want to do whatever I can right now while Hashem is giving me this opportunity. And this one person, I never met him. He just somehow heard about it. So he sent in $300,000. So I have gotten a few donations but most of there was one story where one guy, also a guy I never met, he said he would do $100,000. He was really impressed with everything that's going on. He feels like this is the opportunity. Hashem gave us this opportunity to help out other Jews. I don't want to lose out. So he got a friend of his to match him. to also do 100,000. Before he made his donation, his friend calls him up and says, I know I agreed to send $100,000 like you, but let me ask you a question. If I change my donation from 100 to 150, will you match me? So the first guy said, I'll do it. So that was $300,000 just like that. So there have been a few larger donations, but the majority of the donations are just $500, $1,000, $500, $1,000. Regular people, and for some people, it's not easy to do it. There was one guy, got an email from a guy. He said, I've been saving up money for 20 years to get a new pair of tefillin. He writes this email. I can send you the email. I'll take off his name and send it. For 20 years, I've been saving up money for a new pair of tefillin, and I was about to buy them. And then I was like, wait a second. How can I buy new tefillin when they're Jewish soldiers who want tefillin and they don't have their own tefillin? He said, my new tefillin can wait. And he sent all the money he'd been saving for 20 years to buy tefillin for soldiers.
Crazy. I mean, these stories are unbelievable. In terms of like the donor base, I mean, I know you're telling people are reaching out to you, but like people are giving $300,000. Like this is a lot of money. How like are you on the phone with them, having meetings with them, like pitching to them, or they're just reaching out to you? In terms of like the demographic of these donors, are they, overall mostly unaffiliated, mostly affiliated? Is there mix? Is all over?
It's definitely a mix. Like those stories, I mean, the largest donations I mentioned to you, those came from people who are more what we would call them like modern Orthodox people, those larger ones. A lot of these 10,000 donations came from people who are totally not religious, which is pretty amazing. Most of my work is basically email and WhatsApp, and then the phone calls are limited just because there's limited time in the day because, I work and I thank God I have a wife and I have 7 boys to take care of and I have a daughter. So like I have, and also I'm involved here in Beit Shemesh in the community. Things have been busy here. We've had elections recently. There's a lot going on. So it's limited, how much time I can do for phone calls. But you're right. Most of the very large donations were obviously people I was able to connect with and speak to them and explain to them what we're doing.
Wow, it's unbelievable. I mean, I hope so many of them listen to this podcast and really understand how important the mitzvah of tefillin is to these soldiers and donate, even put on tefillin in schos of soldier, a hostage. I guess, you have any parting messages for people who are struggling with the mitzvah, not soldiers specifically, but overall, any random person?
Yeah, for me, so first of all, let me say one thing before that is tefillin. This is just, I look at it as the gateway mitzvah. Like we're building up a system to be there for all of these soldiers, meaning anything they want in the future. If they want to go somewhere for a Shabbat meal, if they want to go to a class on Torah, if they want to listen to a class on the radio, on whatever it is, like we're there for them. This is not just a one-time thing for the war and then it's over. There are a lot of needs that are necessary for the war. And once the war ends, then the grenades, you'll keep them for, I don't know, hopefully there's not another war. But the point is here, we're putting our effort, our time, our money into building the future. That's what we're doing with these soldiers. Now, it happens to be there are a lot of people who struggle with the mitzvah of tefillin. A lot of people struggle with lots of mitzvahs. So I can tell you if someone who is struggling was asking me for advice, I would say number one is even if you don't feel it, even if you don't want to go pray, take out 5 minutes, you put on tefillin. You fake it till you make it, right? And the Gemara says, Shelo lishma ba lishma. The way we say it is you fake it till you make it. You just try it. You gotta try. You gotta do it. And think when you're tied, when you're just wrapping the tefillin around your arm, just think that like you are connecting with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of Jews across the world. You're connecting with soldiers who are on the front line in Lebanon and Gaza, putting their life on the line so that you can live the life as a free Jew in America, England, Israel, wherever you are. So just to say, just to be able to connect more with these Jews, I want to put, if I know that 3 minutes a day is going to help me connect more with the Jews who are sacrificing their lives for me, then I'm going to do it. And you're connecting with Hashem, with the other Jews. This is what we do. Hashem gave us this mitzvah. And please God, even if you're not into it, you try. And little by little, hopefully you'll get more into it. But we got to try, right? No pain, no gain. We got to try it.
Wow, unbelievable. Thank you so much for all your insights. I'm inspired. And I know from now on, me putting tefillin every morning is going to be different. And I'm sure everyone who's involved in this amazing organization listens to this podcast will be too. Thank you so much again. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for speaking with me. Thank you. Take care.
You have just listened to Wrapped, brought to you by the Tefillin Project. Stay tuned for more episodes featuring the most inspiring people involved in the mitzvah of tefillin. Keep rapping.